Reconciliation's tense weekend, the big Sydney march now starting. Fiji's coup turns savage, gunfights, death, and the government dismissed. And another deadly email virus coming soon to a computer near you. Good morning to you across Australia and in Southeast Asia if you're joining us on Australia Television. I'm Georgie Gardner. Our focus this morning is on two nations where race is an issue. Our own on this crucial weekend. Prime Minister Howard's lonely and disappointing day of Aboriginal reconciliation and what it means for the future. Political correspondent Glenn Milne's analysis shortly. Reconciliation is even further away in Fiji, where coup leader George Speight and his gunmen are, if not digging in their heels. Live reports and comments from Suva a little later. And small business tries to reconcile the rhetoric of Alan Fels with the reality of the GST. He joins finance editor David Koch a little later. And on this Sunday morning, the 28th of May, thousands are gathering in North Sydney for a march across the Harbour Bridge, part of this Corroboree 2000 weekend. Chief political correspondent Glenn Milne is there. Good morning, Glenn.
Good morning, Georgie. As you say, I'm here at the northern entrance to the Harbour Bridge, the Sydney Harbour Bridge, where the Walk for Reconciliation is about to get underway. There would be about 4,000 people here already. Organisers are hoping for more than 100,000. This march will go through till midday, so there's still a big chance they'll reach that number. But one person who won't be amongst them is the Prime Minister. He says he supports the march, but he's declined to attend. That's not good enough for some people who support this cause. And yesterday at the Opera House, at the launch of Corroboree 2000, John Howard faced a hostile reception at the Sydney Opera House. On the shore where white settlers arrived, another historic step. 212 years later, finally the arrival of a document for reconciliation between black and white Australians. At Sydney's Opera House, the gesture of peace was carried inside a hollow log, presented as a gift to future generations. To witness the event, the greatest ever assembly of Australia's Indigenous and non-Indigenous leaders. But Mr Howard's appearance here always carried risks. ATSIC Chairman Jeff Clark challenging him to say on behalf of the nation the one word he's so far avoided: sorry.
Just one small step for you, Prime Minister, can be a giant step forward for the nation.
In reply, the Prime Minister acknowledged
the tragedies and the sadness and the pain and the hurt and the cruelty of the past, to accept the...
But as it became clear Mr Howard would not say the word they wanted to hear, the audience turned on him, literally, in a traditional Aboriginal insult.
To continue the process of reconciliation.
A determined Prime Minister kept to his speech.
And I know there have been areas of disagreement, and it is naive of any of us to pretend that some do not remain.
But the crowd too kept on. The boos continued as Mr Howard and other leaders planted ochre handprints on a reconciliation canvas. The Prime Minister clearly affected by the open hostility. It was left to Reconciliation Chairwoman Evelyn Scott to try and heal the wounds.
Our freedom is your freedom.
From conflict to a celebration of Aboriginal culture, Corroboree 2000 ended with a call for all Australians to continue down the road to full reconciliation.
Let's walk together into the future.
Georgie, this march requires a big turnout for the supporters of reconciliation because as of today, federal government funding ends for the Reconciliation Council. So what the organisers need is a big demonstration of the fact that this is now a hearts and minds movement, a genuine people's movement that is distinct from the politicians and the powerful in Canberra. So they'll be looking to a big symbol from a lot of people here today, and there's a very festive atmosphere, and it looks like it will happen. Georgie, back to you.
All right, Glenn Milne, thank you, and we'll hear more from you during the program. Fiji is in its 9th day of a coup this morning. Our Foreign Minister Alexander Downer saying he's profoundly disturbed by developments. Fiji's president has said he'll dismiss the government, whose Prime Minister is still among coup leader George Spate's hostages. Chris Reason is in Suva. Good morning, Chris. It looks like the chances of a peaceful and constitutional end to this crisis are fading fast.
Certainly does, George. It's difficult to see how this crisis is going to end. Yesterday, of course, was a dramatic escalation in the stakes here in Fiji. We saw for the first time Fijians shooting at Fijians. Now, that didn't even happen in the 1987 coup. The president, Ratu Sukamisi-Mara, is doing everything he can to try and broker a solution here, and he's trying to do it within the boundaries and almost confines of the Constitution. Yesterday, he conceded to 2 more of George Spate's demands. First, he dismissed the government and the Prime Minister, and second, he said it was more than likely that Spate and his gunmen would get and be granted a full amnesty. Ratu Mara called it one of the saddest days in Fijian history. He said, "We can send peacekeepers overseas, but we can't even keep the peace here."
Fijian soldiers fall back as angry supporters of George Spate's coup march on their roadblock. Fights break out and a soldier struggles to hold his rifle. Then shots are fired. The angry mob retreats as the soldiers hold their ground and fire their weapons. Reporters and cameramen dive for cover. There are bullets going everywhere. APTN cameraman Jerry Harmer holds his ground and is hit.
Get down, get down.
More shots ring out as special forces who have joined George Spate shoot at their former comrades.
Come on.
Go the left, go the left, go the left.
The wounded cameraman is carried away. The enraged mob charge the soldiers, who retreat. As a trophy of the clash, the enraged mob carry their army tent back to Parliament, jubilant at this victory over the army. Cameraman Jerry Harmer was taken to hospital, a bullet lodged in his arm. A Fijian soldier is wheeled in, shot in the leg. A second soldier has been shot in the shoulder. The shootings have rapidly escalated the situation. Now that soldiers' blood has been spilled, it's anyone's guess how the army will react.
Are you angry about this?
Yes, of course. Hours later, the president stepped in with more concessions to Spate, hoping to calm things down. President Ratu Sukamisi-Mara dismissed the government of Mahendra Chowdhury, who is still a hostage, and will consider a full amnesty for George Spate and his followers. But he will never consider him as the new Prime Minister.
No, I don't contemplate that.
President Ratu Mara says it's essential no more Fijian blood is spilled. Self-appointed Prime Minister George Spate refused to take any responsibility for the shootings and blamed the army for it. But he described the exchange of gunfire as a warning. Mr Spate has also hit out at the New Zealand and Australian governments who have condemned the overthrow of democracy in Fiji.
I'm not a terrorist. I'm a crusader, I suppose. Yes.
We are going to face not only purgatory but hell politically.
In Suva, Jeff Pack, 7 News.
Georgie, George Spate has always said he wants 2 things, the Constitution rewritten and the job of Prime Minister. It doesn't look like he's going to stop until he gets them. We'll have more reports for you later in the programme.
All right, thank you very much, Chris Reason. Racked by religious and racial violence for generations, Northern Ireland is to get another chance at constitutional peace. Britain has announced it'll reinstate the power-sharing government from midnight on Monday. It followed a crucial vote by unionists allowing party leaders to attend talks with Sinn Féin.
The divisions arised by this couldn't have been clearer outside the hall. Passionate loyalists opposed to the unionist leadership, just yards away from those totally behind the Good Friday Agreement. All in favour of the union, but totally at odds on how to preserve it. It was the biggest turnout of the Ulster Unionist Council at any of its recent meetings for the biggest test of David Trimble's political career.
And let there be absolutely no doubt that I and my colleagues will hold the Republicans to the promises they have made. And if there's any foot dragging, if there's any delay, there will be difficulties.
In the tranquility of Hillsborough Castle, County Down, the wider importance of the Unionist vote, the Northern Ireland Secretary signed the order restoring the devolved power-sharing government, ending its 3-month suspension.
There seems to be a new one every day, and today is no exception. Another computer virus, which the FBI is calling dangerous. It has already infected corporate email systems in the United States, shutting some down. If you use Microsoft Outlook, it arrives with the subject, Resume Janet Simmons. Open it and it'll send itself out to everyone in your email address book, and it'll then attempt to delete files. Peruvian Siamese twins in Italy for separation surgery have both died within hours of the operation. The girls, Milagro and Marta, were joined at the chest, sharing most of their vital organs, including a heart. The entire surgical team has asked for the paediatric wing of the hospital be renamed in the baby's honour. You don't need us to tell you it was a chilly night on much of the east coast. It snowed in the Adelaide Hills and in Canberra, and blizzards have covered the snowy mountains. All of it helped by gales in some areas.
No sign of snow in Sydney, but strong winds associated with the cold weather uprooted trees, leaving the SES with a major clean-up operation in the city. The official start to winter is 4 days away, but Thredbo has already been covered by its first snowfall of the season. Locals waking to a half-metre cover of snow and the chance to exchange their cars for toboggans. For many, their first taste of winter was a good one, but it wasn't to everyone's liking. Snow fights and snowmen going up as the snow continued to come down. Pushing up from the south, the cold snap also hit South Australia, with snow falling across the Adelaide Hills for just the 4th time in May since 1841. The sub-zero temperatures and sudden falls catching some locals in the Flinders Ranges on the hop. Canberra has also been caught in the grip of the cold weather. Bruce Stadium blanketed by snow, setting up a frosty encounter between the ACT Brumbies and the Crusaders in their Super 12 rugby final. Kevin Berishon, 7 News.
And the weather we can expect around the nation today. On the east coast, Cairns 27 and Brisbane a sunny 19 are the places to be. Head south and the temperatures plummet. Sydney showers and 16, Canberra 7 degrees, Melbourne a chilly 10 degrees. Adelaide will reach 13 today, Perth 22, Darwin and Broome. The sun is shining and it'll get over 30 degrees. Sport in a few moments, including the AFL and League and a thriller in the Super 12 final.
Here's Smith. Straight through! The 19-year-old!
At the end of its 5th year, the Super 12 rugby tournament has produced its most exciting finish. Sub-zero temperatures and close to 30,000 people greeted the Canterbury Crusaders. It was almost too much for the New Zealanders, but not enough. As defending champions, they held on to win by just 1 point.
The threat of snow and the near-freezing conditions didn't deter a record crowd in Canberra. The Brumbies' first 40 minutes did little to warm the hearts of supporters. The boot of Andrew Mertens and some punishing Canterbury defence gave the visitors a 12-3 lead. The Brumbies unable to penetrate, and when they did, handling let them down.
The try's on! Tanuki Tower went without it!
The Crusaders withstood a Brumbies barrage in the opening minutes of the second term, and against the run of play produced the first try of the match.
He's done this all season! Sensational try to Ron Cribb!
17-6 down, the Brumbies' persistence was finally rewarded. Title hopes revived.
Here's Smith. Straight through! The 19-year-old!
1 point behind with 7 minutes to play, Sterling Mortlock, who was struggling with his kicking, landed a crucial goal.
He's raised the flags. The Brumbies in front for the first time.
From the restart, the Brumbies conceded a penalty while in possession. The sharp-shooting Andrew Mertens regaining the lead and breaking the Brumbies. Canterbury holding on to their 2019 lead to capture their 3rd straight Super 12 crown. Paul Gregg, 7 News.
Penrith has beaten Melbourne for the first time in the Victorian capital. A late charge from the reigning premiers, not enough. The Panthers won by 3 points. In Townsville, Parramatta, comfortable winners over North Queensland.
The Panthers had Melbourne in shock early. 2 tries to Shane Elford in the opening 10 minutes.
Looking for number 2 and he scores!
Before Danny Williams strolled through some soft defence, cutting the margin to 6. Rodney Howe flirted with danger with this tackle. He finished on report. Nothing wrong with this Howe hit, a bone rattler. Matt Rua then did a Gordon Tallis impersonation to square things up.
He just went past everybody!
When Matt Rodwell put Scott Sattler in, the Panthers were up 16-10. Then a nasty head clash between Howe and Gower saw the pair flat out for a short time, but Gower was up again, and a switch for a barnstorming Matt Adamson after 65.
Just stormed his way across the line!
A Rodwell field goal looked to have put the Storm away, but when Watts scored after 74, Melbourne had a sniff. When Brett Camorley cut the Panthers up with a 55-metre solo effort. Penrith now 23-20 with 4 to go.
Underneath the post!
They held on, the Panthers in a boil-over. In Townsville, the Eels proved slippery early with Andrew Ryan backing up for the only try of the first half.
And that will certainly be a Parramatta try.
A wayward pass from Glenn Morrison proved costly. From the ensuing scrum, David Penner, a great ball for Daniel Wagon, and the Eels were up 16-0.
He'll race 20 metres and score.
The Cowboys got on the board through a state of origin at Paul Bowman after 50. This call a tough one for video ref Chris Ward. He ruled Wagon still had hold of the jersey, and Graham Appo made a second movement and disallowed the try. Paul Green was on report for this high shot as the Eels walked away with the 2 points, 20-6 victors. Bernard Cohen, 7 News.
The Sydney Swans' bad run continues, the 8th loss in 12 games, this time against Adelaide. The Crows winning by 50 points. Hawthorn beat Fremantle by a similar margin, and Brisbane went down to Richmond by 12 points.
The Tigers didn't seem at all bothered by the Brisbane road trip last night, booting 10 goals straight to lead by 28 points early in the second term.
Goal. There's a beauty by Chaffee.
Power led the Brisbane fight back.
The little left footer.
Scores locked up at half-time. The two teams going virtually goal for goal throughout the third term. Power having a night out.
Power's there for number 4. Gee, you can kick goals with Power.
But the Tigers snuck away to yet another fighting win, this time by 12 points.
Can he finish it off? I think he can. Great work by the Tigers.
In Adelaide, the Crows had no trouble accounting for the out-of-form Swans. Rashudo continuing his great form.
He gets hold of it, and he's kicked another one.
Creswell tried to lift the Sydney Siders.
45 metres out, the Swans need a goal.
But they had too few options up forward, unlike the Crows, who ran out comfortable 50-point winners.
Edwards will kick a goal.
At Colonial Stadium, another one-sided game, this time between Hawthorn and the Dockers.
And Joel Smith strolls in.
Coops gave the Dockers one highlight for the night.
In favour.
But the Hawks were always in control, finishing 10 goals in front. Des Dowling, 7 News.
Socceroo Tony Vidmar was among the goal scorers in a convincing Scottish FA Cup victory this morning by Rangers. Aberdeen had no answer to the Rangers' charge, Vidmar's goal coming just after half-time. Fellow Socceroo Craig Young had a solid game. The win completes the Cup and Premiership doubles for Rangers and is the 100th major title they've won. In a moment, we'll return live to the Reconciliation March after this. On Sunday Sunrise now, it's good morning to David Koch.
Morning, Georgie. Morning, all. Well, as weeks go in finance, this has been a fairly quiet one, but global markets were again fairly volatile. Closer to home, not a great deal of movement. The ASX 200 and the All Ordinaries Index both finishing the week down. The week's big dipper, News Corp, huge sell-offs through the week, has seen the stock plunge from its record high of $28 in March. Some analysts now believe shares could fall as low as just $12. To the brokers now, and FW Hulse picks Novus Petroleum. Colonial says Financial Solutions is undervalued, and DJ Carmichael likes Bank West. The Aussie dollar continued its slide, dipping again below 57 US cents. The week's worst kept secret? Vodafone's decision to cancel its $2.7 billion float. Our third largest mobile phone company was set to list on Friday but pulled out the day before, citing the volatility of the Australian market. However, Vodafone says it remains committed to listing in the future. Convergent Communications was also set to list this week but pulled out for similar reasons. One float still expected to go ahead is the insurance arm of the NRMA. The state of the market will weigh heavily on the share price, though. A pre-GST sweetener from the Treasurer for small business. Fronting a small business forum, Peter Costello promised equipment like computers purchased before June 30 will be immediately a 100% tax write-off if used for GST purposes.
As long as it's installed over the next 12 months, you don't have to depreciate it over 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 7 years, whatever the life of it is, it will be immediately tax deductible against the 1999-2000 year.
But the bulk of Australian consumers still don't fully understand the implications the new tax will have on their personal finances. Despite all the government's advertising campaigns, the University of Melbourne study shows that less than 1/5 of us claim to have a full understanding of the changes. Close to 60% of those surveyed nominate a partial understanding of the new tax system will affect them, and 18% have no idea. It was a big week for the Australian Competition and Consumer Commission, releasing its pricing guide for shoppers. Every household in the country will receive one, which includes a palm-sized ready reckoner with estimates on how much prices on a range of goods should rise or fall. ACCC Chairman Professor Alan Fells joins me now. Professor, were you surprised at the hysteria that this shopping guide created?
No, I think it provided mass assurance to consumers who would otherwise not know what the likely effects of the GST on prices were. A lot of businesses have also welcomed it, but it is true that in some cases business self-interests have led them to make much higher forecasts of the effects of the GST.
Businesses saying, though, that it's oversimplified, that it doesn't take into account market forces. If there's a frost in Tasmania and the price of apples go up, that's not because of the GST, but consumers could be a bit misled now.
No, it's made very, very clear in all those newspaper ads you saw and in the guide itself that the effects shown are the effects of the taxes only and not other factors, and they're the effects over 6 months. They do not try to estimate other effects on prices.
Do you think that's made clear in the pricing guide?
It's made extremely clear, and if you look at the newspaper ads, you'll see it very prominently displayed, and even more so in the guide that goes out to the household.
I suppose the other thing that's a bit of a worry too is this Melbourne University study saying that basically consumers know nothing about the GST, and we're just 5 weeks away from it.
Their survey suggested that 52% of consumers thought that all prices would rise by 10%. Our shopping guide has pricked that bubble of inflated expectations, and if it had not done so, prices would have gone up by more than was warranted. The guide shows that some prices will fall, some will stay about the same, some will go up by medium, other by higher amounts. It injects some realism into people's expectations.
This coming week you're going to release a calculator for small business as well. What's the idea of that?
The idea is to guide the millions of small businesses in this country about how to calculate the effects of the cost savings that are involved in the taxes, the wholesale sales tax reductions, but also there's a lot of other cost savings, and they should be factored into prices on things like post and stamps and petrol and office equipment and computers and so on.
On Friday, you announced that you're going to take the Video Easy dispute to court. You're going to get it settled there. Do we see any more cases like that on the horizon? How many more?
There are likely to be some. We are looking at some matters at the present time. Of course, the tax hasn't arrived yet, so we don't expect a lot of cases before July 1. And The one instance of tax cuts last July 29 on TV, videos, hi-fis, our surveys showed that the cuts were actually passed through in full. So there was good compliance so far.
So will Video Easy set the precedent for future litigation? Is that the main purpose of it?
Well, besides the fact that the Commission considers that they have been acting unlawfully, overcharging and misleading and deceiving consumers, it's up to the federal court now to determine the case.
Still in the courts, though, it's not the only case you've got going. You've got 54 other cases in the courts, and I notice many of them relate to e-commerce and the internet. Where's the problem there?
Well, this is a new area, and consumer protection needs to be stepped up in this area. Just to give you an example, David, we've come across just in the last day or so a case where fireworks are being sold on the internet. Now, they're available even to children so far as we can see, and in most states there are laws which say you can only sell fireworks if you're licensed and if the buyer is licensed. Most ordinary people can't buy them, but here they are on the internet. Now, we're investigating that particular case, but it does illustrate that there are big consumer protection issues in internet selling.
And will you widen your investigation? Is this going to be a major focus for the ACCC over the next couple of months?
Yes, and over the next couple of years, if not decades, because often the normal protections for a consumer, warranties and refunds, protections against misleading and deceptive conduct, protections against privacy, credit card fraud and so on are weak, and we need to probably strengthen the laws, get more international cooperation and generally treat it as a high priority.
Do you think other regulators are putting enough effort into this? It seems as though that you're the only one concentrating on it.
The Americans are starting to do some things, but it is lagging a bit around the world. And there has been some cooperation. We cooperated with the Americans recently and got refunds in the Internet scheme for 6,000 Australian, 6,000 US consumers.
The other big business issue of the week is the continuing saga of the antitrust move against Microsoft into the United States. The judge in the US court is saying, no more evidence, I'm going to make my decision now. So we're getting pretty close. What implications here? Will you follow his lead in terms of Microsoft in Australia?
The Commission is likely to follow whatever the US outcome is, and it's looking like divestiture at the present time. As you might know, in the mid-90s, the regulators tried to get Microsoft to behave better, but were not satisfied, so a more drastic solution is being urged now.
So we could see a break-up of Microsoft's operations here in Australia, pushed by you?
Well, only if it happened in the US. If it happened in the US, we would want it to apply here.
Does Microsoft have the same dominance here in Australia?
Oh, it's in a pretty strong position in Australia. I would guess that a solution fixed in Washington would flow on all around the world, that other regulators would join with the Department of Justice to make sure that there were the same remedies in their country. And if there was a break-up in the US, surely it would have to happen here.
What's the status of the action that you're taking against Qantas in terms of deregulation of the airline industry? You've got some matters, some complaints from Impulse that you're looking into. Are you taking that any further?
Well, we are very actively looking at that. That's a very high priority area for the Commission, because in the next few months the airline scene is going to change. You're going to have Impulse, Virgin, as well as Qantas, and Ansett with Singapore's enhanced role in it now. It'll be a very lively scene. We want to see more competition, and in particular our job is to make sure there is no unlawful anti-competitive conduct by anyone, that competition processes are protected.
Have you found any to date?
We've had significant complaints from Impulse. We're looking into them. We have not concluded at all that the behaviour by Qantas is unlawful, but it is under serious investigation.
When will you have a result?
Oh, I'd expect that we'll get a preliminary feeling on that in the next couple of weeks.
Okay. Professor Alan Fells, thanks very much for joining us on Sunrise.
Thank you, David.
Georgie.
Thanks, David. Next, Fiji from a former hostage's view as the coup spirals ever closer to more violence. As we reported earlier, the crisis in Fiji is deepening. Events yesterday showed again how close it all is to violence and gunfire. Our reporter Chris Reason joins us again. Chris?
Thanks, Georgie. Well, yesterday afternoon, the President, Ratu Sukamasisi Mara, described his country as sliding not only towards purgatory, but to hell. George Speight has Fiji on its knees right now. The world is asking why the authorities here continue to negotiate with him. But what's giving this coup so much momentum is the issue behind it. The Fijians think that the local Indian population simply have too much wealth, too much power. George Speight is trying to grab some of that back. So where does that leave the Indian community? Joining me now is Mr. John Alley. Now, he was the first of the hostages to be released this time last week. You also were a minister in Mr. Chowdhury's government. Of course, yesterday that government was dismissed by the President. You no longer have a job. Tell us, Mr. Alley, what does Mr. Speight think of Indians?
Well, looking at all the happenings, I think we are regarded as fifth-class citizens in our own country where we were born, country we thought is our home, country where we build our homes, and we did whatever we could for the betterment of everyone and for us, but we are no longer a citizen in our own country.
I've spoken to so many Indian businessmen who say that that's it for them. They want to pack up, they want to emigrate, they want to get out of here. Is that what you're hearing from your community?
Yes, I'm hearing from everyone I have met. I have been visited by over 2,000 people since my release, and everyone has expressed the desire to leave this country. The sooner the better. The question is, where are we going to go? Who is going to take us? As you know, our people here, the Indian people, the Indian community, they are very hard-working people. We not aspire for political seats or anything. People talk about rights. What about our rights? Don't we have our human rights? Don't we have our political rights? If we are stripped of that rights in our own country where we are born, where do we stand?
Do you think Australia can play a role here?
I think Australia can play a great role. Australia is a large country. Australia has a lot of lands and resources. Australia is contributing a lot of financial assistance. I would urge and appeal to the Australian government and to the good people of Australia to use that resources and assistance that you give in resettling the people from Fiji.
So take the aid money and use it to bring Indians out of the country and into Australia?
Exactly. And I'm pretty sure...
We seem to have had a satellite problem there in Fiji. We'll return after a break with more of Sunday Sunrise. You're on Sunday Sunrise. The numbers in the Reconciliation March across Sydney's Harbour Bridge are growing. And joining us again is political correspondent Glenn Milne. Glenn, it's too early to give a complete assessment of what this weekend means, but it seems to be several different meanings for all the groups concerned. Is that a fair assumption, do you think?
I think so, Georgie. I mean, some people see the reconciliation movement very much as a city-based movement, and that's on evidence here today with the march. Thousands of people streaming across the Harbour Bridge. There are some, particularly inside the government, who believe that when it comes to practical reconciliation on the ground, that it's less a matter of hearts and minds and more a practical matter of helping black Australians with health, education and the like. And there's a feeling that in the bush, that white Australians confront many more difficult problems with reconciliation, just living shoulder to shoulder with each other. But today, a fine mood here, very festive and very friendly. And of course, there's one person missing, that's John Howard. He's lent his support to the march but has decided not to participate. But before today's events began, he came under strong pressure just to do that from people as diverse as Yvonne Corley, the former great Aboriginal tennis star.
Yes, I'm very excited. It's something that hopefully they're going to do every year, and because I'll be the first one to turn up, because I think there are a lot of wonderful people out there who really want to sort of learn more about and respect Aboriginal culture, and I think this is a way of doing it, and to show they really care, and I think we're going to have a really good turnout tomorrow, which makes me very happy.
Can I ask what you think of the Prime Minister's decision not to march tomorrow?
Well, there's going to be a lot of other people taking his place, which is great.
Yes, I expected to see a better day still.
What do you mean by that, sir?
A better attendance of all Australians and all their leaders.
Gough Whitlam there, Georgie, of course, and it was under the Whitlam government, quite appropriately on this day, that the first moves towards reconciliation started. The ball really started to move under the Whitlam government with the granting of land rights to Aborigines.
Glenn, this weekend's also pointed up major differences in approach between the Prime Minister and his heir apparent, Peter Costello, hasn't it?
Yes, Peter Costello actually dipped his oar in the water. He suggested that he might march, and that would have been in sharp contrast to the Prime Minister's position. But in the end, he kept government solidarity up, and the government has decided that there'll only be two ministers representing the coalition here today: John Herron, the Aboriginal Affairs Minister, and Philip Ruddock, who's the Minister for Reconciliation. But certainly Peter Costello has lent his weight to this movement, and it's emphasised the fact that when it comes to social policy, he's less conservative than John Howard. But Mr Howard had his chance too to put his case and his beliefs on reconciliation when he addressed Corroboree 2000 at the Opera House yesterday.
But let all of us try this weekend, and for my part I pledge that I will, in what I say, is to focus on those things that unite us and bind us together as Australians in the cause of healing the wounds and the divisions of the past, and of moving forward in a united and harmonious fashion. It is quite impossible for anybody to attend a gathering such as this without being captured and moved by its symbolism and the speciality of the occasion. I think it is an expression of a desire of all Australians to go forward, not to forget or ignore or fail to express sorrow or regret for the pain of the past. It is impossible to understand the difficulty and the reality of today and to move forward effectively without understanding or acknowledging the pain that was inflicted by the injustices of the past. And it is not possible for any of us to reflect upon the desirability of moving forward without acknowledging the impact that European civilisation had on the Indigenous people of this country and the cultures of the Indigenous people.
John Howard there at the Opera House putting his case, Georgie, he very much believes that he's conscientious about reconciliation too, but he expresses his values in a different way, in ways such as those practical matters of assistance I discussed earlier with you, on the ground, health, education and so forth. He believes that people who want to express it more as a symbolic action should also respect his conscience and his belief. He doesn't believe that current generations should have to apologise for the past treatment of Aborigines. Nevertheless, he says he regrets it sincerely.
I hope that it'll be a good culmination to 10 years' work on reconciliation. I hope that it'll be a positive time. I hope that it will be a unifying time, and it'll give people on both sides of the Aboriginal, non-Aboriginal differences, time to reconcile with each other and go forward into the future. That's what I'm hoping will come out of today.
Given the calls from ATSIC and the newspapers today, do you think the Prime Minister should change his mind and walk tomorrow across the bridge?
Well, the Prime Minister's position's been made entirely clear. He's speaking today at the ceremony, and I hope it's productive. I think the best thing to happen, come out of the weekend, will be a spirit of reconciliation. Let's try and make it positive. That's the whole idea. Rather than emphasise differences, let's try and emphasise what we have in common.
There you see Peter Costello staking out his turf, if you like, on reconciliation, making it clear that if he ever becomes leader of the Liberal Party, which will probably happen at some stage, that he'll be much more committed probably to this sort of symbolic demonstration of support for reconciliation than John Howard has been in the past. And that's an important thing for him to do. It makes him look much more like a modern leader, perhaps some would say, who oppose John Howard, more suited to the times. But here for the moment, it's a great day, Georgie. There must have been about 5,000, even more people now marching across the bridge. They're streaming behind me constantly here. It's a happy family atmosphere, all sorts of groups represented. It is bipartisan. I've just seen Malcolm Fraser walk past with his wife Tammy, and the bridge will be open till midday. The march actually started with a bang, literally firecrackers at 8 a.m. this morning, but the bridge will remain open until midday, and the organisers are hoping that there'll be over 100,000 people marching. Certainly the numbers are building, and they'll be hopeful of reaching that target, and I'd say there's a real chance it will happen. So we'll be here throughout the morning, and from the bridge now, it's goodbye.
All right, Glenn Milne, thank you very much for that. Coming up, the weather outlook and the first glimpse of Britain's most talked about new baby. Britain's first baby, Leo Blair, has made his first public appearance, a brief one to escape the pressures of Downing Street. The Prime Minister has left the country in the hands of his deputy. Fatherhood, the fourth time round, is proving more than a handful. The whole Blair family is taking the week off. They'll holiday at Chequers, the Prime Minister's country retreat, while Parliament is in recess. Now, a final look at the weather around Australia today. And on the east coast, Cairns at 27 and Brisbane with a sunny 19 degrees are the places to be. Heading south and the temperatures plummet. Sydney, showers and 16 degrees. Canberra, a very chilly 7. Melbourne, cold as well, 10 degrees there. Adelaide will reach 13. Perth, the top of 22. Darwin and Broome, the sun shining, and it'll be a far more pleasant 30 degrees. And that is our program this morning. Sports World is next. News updates during the day and, of course, all the top stories, including the latest from Fiji in 7 News tonight at 6 o'clock. Don't forget the Salvos this weekend. Their National Red Shield Appeal door knock is on. I'm Georgie Gardner. Hope to see you back here tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. for sunrise. Enjoy the rest of your day.
At this corroboree to heal the past and to move on. All the people of this ancient land will come together and sing as one. These can be heady days.